guys, so I'm back with yet another Wattpad story. Today's story that I am reviewing is Trust No Love. So full disclosure, this is the first erotic story that I've read on Wattpad. I have read part of 50 Shades, but yeah, this is the first full-on erotic story that I've ever read. I don't know what I was expecting, but I was definitely surprised. In a good way. So before we get started, we're gonna review the cover. I feel like I like the glow of the cover. That's something that I like. I also like the name. Both those things, great. They're very gripping. You can tell that it's obviously a romance-based sort of story. I don't think it's really giving like erotica vibes. It seems that it's like a very PG cover. It's rather tame, I think, compared to the story. So I don't know how I feel about the book cover. I feel like it doesn't do the story justice, in all honesty, but you know, it's also not a bad cover. I do like the glow effect, and I do like how simplistic it is. I don't like covers that are overly over the top, you know? So yeah, moving along. Next we'll focus on the blurb. I feel like the blurb is very direct. You know, it gives a good idea of what to expect in the story. It mentions that there is toxic type of relationships in the story. Let me just double check some things. I don't want to say any spoilers. Just 1 second. I'm always checking my phone. It's very rude of me, but I don't want to accidentally spoil. So 1 second. Okay, so I feel like the blurb is really direct in the sense of it definitely gives you a good outline of the story. However, I feel like it's a bit spoilery. Like in a way, it's like it's gripping. Like it's gripping in the way of like, okay, that's interesting, I want to read it. However, when you read the book, it's like, it's just a bit spoilery. That's all I want to say without spoiling more. Wait, spoilering? That's not a word. Without spoiling more. So yeah, I'm not sure about the blurb. It's like, I feel like both the cover and the blurb don't really give full justice to what the story is. I do want to give a quick disclaimer that the story does have a few grammatical errors and typos and that sort of thing, but I found the story interesting enough that it wasn't off-putting to me and I could still very easily read the story. So yeah, we're moving into it. Okay, so keep in mind this is the first erotic story that I've read on Wattpad. I feel like it's an erotic mix because there actually was a lot of plot. I feel like going into it I was expecting very like 50 Shades, whereas like a lot of scenes are just really, you know, detailed. And I do have a nitpicky thing with both of those things. Now, I just want to say writing sex scenes is hard, okay? So I'm a writer, I have written a few sex scenes, and not only is it nerve-wracking to find that medium, and I say that carefully because I don't really write erotic stories, so I need to find a spot that's not too much detail, not too less detail. With erotic stories, I feel like you can really just push the envelope, if that's the saying, if I'm saying that correctly, I don't know, but it is 4 a.m. as I film this, so I apologize, and I'm also not too well, so you just have to bear with me. But yeah, like, so I feel like I went into it expecting there to be a lot of really graphic, in my face, you know, sex scenes, and to be honest, I was like a little bit intimidated by that. I was like, I want to read it because I want to read different things and I want to expand my horizons. It's interesting enough, you know, I want to read it. However, is it just going to be all sex? I was pleasantly surprised that there is a good amount of plot in the story. Like, if anything, there could be more sex, to be honest. There could be. So yeah, I was pleasantly surprised with the plot. I really like how the writer displays different relationships, and there's definitely a curveball in there. So there is a spoiler in terms of the blurb, which is like, it doesn't seem like a spoiler until you read the story. So it's like, you know, I guess it's okay. But I would have liked a bit more mystery with the blurb, because then once I read the book, I was like, oh, spoiler in the blurb. So it's like, it's a good thing, and like, it's like I would have liked a bit more mystery. So I really liked the character relationships. I feel like one of the strongest points of the story is the way the characters are displayed in their relationships. The writer also displays fights very well and realistically, which isn't an easy thing to do. The sex scenes are very direct, and I also like that. It's like, there's not a lot of beating around the bush. It's very to the point. It's very direct. You know what's happening. There's no confusion. And I think that's how a sex scene should be, you know, in terms of like how you write it. I mean, it depends on, with an erotic story, I think that's how a sex scene should be. It should be very to the point, very direct, so the reader's, you know, not confused about what's happening. One nitpicky thing, and this is both in 50 Shades and Trust No Love, it's how they're referring to the nethers, the nether region. So in my books, and I'm not saying I'm doing it perfect, but this is just what I prefer. I kind of use, you see, it's a YouTube video, so I can't really, I feel like it's better to use a word like rooster or something more direct like that, something that rhymes with sick. I feel like those words are better, particularly for an erotic story, even though they're a bit more in your face. In both 50 Shades and Trust No Love, they opt for safe words. And it's like, I feel like if you're going to write an erotic story, you may as well just go for it. You know, just go for it. If you're going to be writing that, just use the words. Just use the gritty words. It's why, if someone's reading it, let's just face it, it's why they're there. Okay? That's just my opinion. So in 50 Shades, they refer, and I was so confused the first time I read this, they refer to it as in her sex. And I get what the writer was trying to do. But some of the scenes that they write in that story, they should have just called it what it was, okay? If you're gonna write those scenes, just call it what it is, okay? Let's not beat around the bush, okay? Okay, so, and in Trust No Love, it's very much a similar thing. They refer to it as the clinical term. That's not wrong, you know, clinically it's correct. But I feel like if you're in a sexy scene, you don't want to be hearing the clinical term, you want to be hearing the more dirty terms. You want to be hearing the nitty gritty. So that's my one nitpicky thing. That's it. That's the one thing. And it's a very small thing, you know, I could get over it. It was okay. I kept going. It didn't like make me throw down my little phone. Thank goodness, because can't afford to break that. So yeah, but it was fine. I like the characters. My favorite character probably started with Serenity, just because I felt like her backstory was quite, how do I word it? I had a lot of empathy for her because of her backstory, and she goes through something very similar to what, I don't want to spoil, but it's just, I had a lot of empathy for her character. However, the empathy quickly faded. So she was my favorite character for, I think, one chapter, and then I wasn't really sure. I don't know who my favorite was, unfortunately, but I very much, it's kind of, it reminded me of Euphoria. I don't know if you guys watch Euphoria, but it's like, you kind of hate all the characters equally because they're all pretty bad people, you know, but they're interesting to watch. It's like, you probably wouldn't want to befriend most of them, mainly Cassie. No hate. I actually have a lot of empathy for her character too. But yeah, it's like, I feel like as a writer, it's important to make the characters flawed. So as a writer, the writer did absolutely the best thing, nailed the character development, and it was engaging, you know. I don't know if I'd want to befriend any of the characters, but they were interesting to read, and that's sort of what I'm saying. It's similar to Euphoria. I don't think, you know, I don't know how I really feel about the characters as individuals, but they're definitely entertaining to watch. It's kind of like that, and I think that you have to be, you know, quite a talented writer to pull that off, to have the reader not really like your characters or not really like some characters, but keep reading, you know. So yeah, it's definitely props to the writer for doing that. Yet again, my favorite thing was how the relationships were. I feel like the writer very much spread awareness to toxic relationships and, you know, those red flags, and yeah, I was really impressed by how that was portrayed, because sometimes, without spoiling, it's not always obvious, you know. So I really like that. So yeah, I really enjoyed the story. I would actually have liked it to have been longer, or certain scenes to be more more detailed and more like, I'm not talking about those scenes, you little nasty, But I mean, with the plot and just, I felt like sometimes the pace was so fast and I would have liked more. But that's just saying that obviously I enjoyed the story. If, you know, I'm wanting more, that's what you want the readers to have. So if you want to read the full review, it will be on my blog, and that will be linked below along with the link to this story. And yeah, for, you know what, for my first erotic story on Wattpad, I'm giving it a solid 6.9 stars. That's what I'm gonna do. So yeah,